Okay. So yesterday we had our discussion on the logical model, and we had already have some discussion on some of the roles there. Now I started our discussion with some broadly classified 5 different role we have onto the cloud. I must say the 5 different entity which is actually going to take place, which is going to involve there to do the business within the cloud environment there. So definitely CSP, Cloud Service Provider, is one of them. So let me just clean my whiteboard. Yeah, so CSP, Cloud Service Provider, is one of them who is actually offering the services to the consumer. Then we have the CSB, Cloud Service Broker. Yesterday we had our discussion on the same. So remember, we are actually right now discussing about the NIST reference architecture there. Now, if you're going to take the reference from the ISO side, ISO has also given their own documentation for the same there, for the roles and responsibility. It might be you are going to check out the different terms there, but again, overall responsibilities are going to same there. What in this documentation we are discussing about there. So I must say that cloud service broker which we had discussed yesterday, that which is actually going to do the brokerage service there, which is actually going to maintain the use and manage the services on behalf of the consumer as well. And there are 3 different type of brokerage that we have there: intermediation, aggregation, and arbitrage there. Apart from that, we also have the auditor. Yeah, so we have the cloud auditor. I must say that cloud auditor is basically a party which is going to perform the independent examination of cloud service control there, right? So cloud service providers are actually promising multiple different attribute there, like they are good with their privacy controls, they are good with the security control, and so the very many different services they have there which is actually offering to the consumer. So auditor main goal is actually to perform the independent examination of cloud service control there, and based on that they are going to express their opinion, and they are going to provide the proper confidence to the consumer so they can actually utilize the cloud services there. Like let's take an example of any of the cloud services, like might be the firewall you're going to utilize from the cloud provider. One of the basic level of firewall we have into the cloud, that is called the security group. I must say that if you are utilizing the AWS, I must say that if I'm utilizing the AWS, in case of AWS, the term we are utilizing for their basic firewall is called the security group. And security group normally attach with your instance, and instance is basically like a VM there. So security group normally going to attach with the VM.
It's a
Now,
stateless or stateful?
there is a question from where?
Srini here. Is it a stateless or stateful firewall?
It's a stateful firewall.
Okay.
Actually, AWS is having 2 type of firewalls there. One is the security group here, and one is called the NACL, Network Access Control. So when you're going to use the NACL, so that one is actually the stateless. Security group is basically the stateful.
Yep. Thank you.
So normally the security group is going to attach with a VM, and based on that, they're going to do the filtering there. Now, if I'm utilizing the security group, how much confidence I can actually use onto this particular security group there, whether they can filter the traffic, whether they can act as a firewall which is going to help me to more normal filter the traffic. Those things I have to check it out there, because definitely it is the first time on the cloud provider side you're utilizing such firewalls there. Previously you were utilizing some known vendors, like might be the Cisco, or might be the Fortinet, or might be the any other vendors which is actually very much popular in the market there, which is definitely tested as well. But how much confidence you can actually utilize to use this particular security group there. So these are some of the thing which is actually going to be tested by the auditor for you there. So this is basically going to check it out, the security control effectiveness there. See, there could be a possibility that security control is efficient enough, but whether it is right now effective or not, so that one is actually going to tested by the auditors itself there. So auditor is going to make an assessment of the security control over and all, I must say there, in the information system to determine the extent to which the control are implemented correctly. Is it operating as intended, and is it providing the desired outcome with respect to the security requirement for the system? So that is what exactly the auditors are actually going to check it out. Now, when auditors will going to do the audit, I must say one more thing here, that as a cloud consumer, you can also initiate for the third party audit. Now remember that multiple different type of audits, I must say, that we are actually performing there. We have this third party audit, one of them. Now, when we are performing the third party audit, I must say there is a cloud security alliance we have there. And from the cloud security alliance, there is a security trust and assurance registry, which is specifically to show the trust among the providers. We are actually going to check it out there. So even the security trust and assurance registry has given an option where we have to go for the third party audit to make sure that we can utilize the product of the provider even after getting or after doing the third party audit only there. So we already know that what exactly the Cloud Security Alliance is. It's a non-for-profit organization whose mission is basically to promote the use of best practices, specifically in cloud computing there. So CSA, Cloud Security Alliance, has given their Security Trust and Assurance Registry, which is designed to help customer access and select a cloud service provider through three-step program of self-assessment, third-party audit, and continuous monitoring. So I must say there, we have a star registry, which is actually called as the Security Trust and Assurance Registry there. Now, as I'm saying, that Security Trust and Assurance Registry is designed to help our consumer to select a provider through three-step program there. And these three-step program is actually divided into three different level, I must say there. Level 1 is basically the self-assessment. So every provider have to complete the self-assessment, and they have to submit their report either to the Cloud Security Alliance, okay, or might be they are going to publish the same report onto their own website there. Main goal is actually to understand their overall control effectiveness there from their own view there, right? And based on that, the provider can actually filter the relevant provider itself there. So sorry, consumer can actually filter the relevant provider itself there. So when we are doing the self-assessment, in case of self-assessment, yep.
Sorry, I'm missing something. Maybe I didn't listen. Is STAR a security framework? Because if you do self-assessment, you do it against a certain framework, don't you? Like NIST 853 or whatever. So how do you what is the framework that you self-assess against?
That is what I'm about to discuss there.
Okay,
so for
sorry.
this, for this particular self-assessment, we have a reference framework, or you must say the reference documentation here, that is called as the CAC. If you remember yesterday, I discussed this about this CAC documentation, Consciousness Assessment Initiative Questionnaire. I already shown you that particular documentation as well. And this CAC documentation is actually has been taken based on the Ccm, Cloud Control Metrics. And right now the current version of this documentation is 3.01. So let me just show you that Ccm documentation to you all first before I'm moving forward. So this is the Ccm documentation we have there. If you see carefully in this particular documentation, we have multiple options given there. First is the control domain. like which control domain actually we are going to check it out there. Might be the application security, might be the business continuity, might be the disaster recovery, might be the data related security. Multiple different components has been given there under this particular domain. So I must say that the total of 16 domain we have in this particular documentation there, and you can check it out there. So this is the first domain we have there: data security and information lifecycle. When you go down, you will be able to get this data center security asset management there. When you go down there, the third domain, you will be able to get this encryption and key management, and so on. We have other documentation, other domains there. So there are total of 16 different domain have been given there, and basically based on that only we are going to check it out there whether these controls are there or not. But remember, based on that only, the set of questions have been created there by Cloud Security Alliance, and the cloud provider is expected to provide the response for that particular questions there. And based on the response, definitely the consumer have to select the particular provider there. It is definitely based on their requirement there. So these questions are actually going to help customer to understand what they have, okay, specifically what the provider have and how they are actually operating. And based on that, they can filter one of the provider very easily there. So we have the control domain. Mhm.
Is there in this case like a level of passing or not passing, like, or is it you have to look at each question separately and integrate it?
I must say there is not like about the passing or not passing, because this time we are not doing a kind of assessment which is going to help them whether the control is actually corrected properly or operating properly there. Cac documentation is moreover concerned to the consumer requirements there, right? So suppose as a consumer I'm having a specific requirement towards the application security. So how exactly they are operating, what reference architecture they are following for their application development, for the business continuity, what management method they are actually utilizing, like might be the ISO 22301 and others there. So that is what, because this is going to help consumer to understand how my provider is operating there, and based on that they are going to make the assumption that their standard and their reference architecture is actually in a way, so they must be operating in a certain way there, and that assumption is going to help them to filter, because might be it is going to very much align to their own process, or might be it is not there. So based on that there could be some risk, and again could be not. So this is actually going to be the initial criteria for filtering the service provider itself there. Is it clear?
Yeah, thank you.
It's like a BA for the cloud.
Yes, you can say they are correct. So yeah, this is the one. And in each control domain, we have multiple control ID, which is going to discuss about the different controls within the same domain there. So I must say there are total of 136 controls we have there, which is actually defined under the control ID there. So we have 16 control domain, and these 16 control domain is actually divided into 136 different controls there. Now remember, it from the examination perspective, it is also important. These numbers are very important there, because they are also going to test like whether you have the information about the CCM or not. It is not only going to help you as a consumer to filter the provider, but also as an auditor, it will help me to understand the overall controls what I need to access, because based on that Cac documentation, I will be getting a proper reference about what controls and the control IDs actually I need to verify it there as well. So we have the control ID, which is I told that 136 control ID, and definitely this third column is discussing about the control specification. It means what exactly in this control ID we have to check it out there. Now, rest of the components are actually aligned with the different component of the cloud. So I must say they are in the architectural relevance field. So that is the fourth column I must say there. So in this particular field, we have the relevant component, like we have physical, we have network, we have compute, we have storage, we have app, and we have data. So this application and interface security, is actually going to affect which component, which architecture relevance component. That one has been mapped there. So you can see here, it is actually right now impacting the compute, storage, app, and data. Now, if you go down there and look for the different control ID there, it might be affecting all of them. Okay. So what exactly the area which is getting impacted because of this particular control ID, that one you can check it out here. Now, this one you are going to take as a reference when you are going to do the audit there, and definitely when you're trying to understand the overall behavior of the cloud provider as well. But if I'm coming from the examination perspective, they're not going to ask you what are the relevant column which is getting impacted here. Okay, they will be must be asking you what are the component falls under the architecture relevance column there. So you must know that under the architecture relevance column, we have the physical network, compute, storage, app, or data. So these are the components which is the part of the architecture relevance column there. Because definitely this documentation is very much intense and depth there. So it is almost, I must say that, impossible kind of thing to remember each of the data which is given there under the cloud control metrics there. So they're not trying to test, each component, but they must be asking you the overall, component of the CCM documentation.
So you mean to say that they will ask questions relevant to, okay, this specific control, which all architectural relevance is applicable. That's what you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
Good.
Got it. Okay.
And another component we have here, so apart from the architecture relevance column, we have one more, that is corporate governance. So whether this particular component, application and interface security, is it really relevant for the corporate governance there? If it is, definitely it is going to be crossed here. If it is not, it should be blank. So you can see there, the second column, second control ID is actually relevant to the corporate governance there. So corporate governance is basically going to check it out that whether we are moving in a right direction, whether we are operating correctly or not. So these are actually some of the things which is actually going to be checked it out here. And apart from that, we have the cloud service delivery model applicability, which is going to check it out there whether this particular column is going to impact the services models of the cloud there. Okay, so we have multiple service model, and SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS we have. So this application security column, specifically first control ID, is impacting which component, or I must say that which service model of the cloud there. So right now you can see that it is actually impacting all of them, and who is responsible for that one is going to be discussed under the supplier relationship. So it is the provider, or is it the tenant, or you can say is it the customer who is responsible for the security of this application security there. Now remember, within the application we have multiple components, so I must say there it is actually depends what exactly the control given there. Based on that only we can define the responsibility, right? So we have the supplier relationship and definitely the provider or tenant who is responsible. And then the last column we have here, which is actually having all the different standards which we needed to utilize there, because again, cloud is a global technology. So for this global technology, we have multiple different standards to fulfill out there. So if you see the last column, it is actually the scope applicability column there. And under the scope applicability column, we have all the different standards, like we have ENISA, we have FedRAMP, we have FERPA, we have GAP, we have HIPAA, all of different ISO 27001, high tech 27017, which is the cloud specific control, and 27018 for the privacy there, and other different controls has been different there. So scope applicability column, I must say there, it is having all the most relevant standards and the regulations which should have to be mapped with our application, or might be the business continuity, or might be other columns there. So these are the different information we have under the CCM 3.01 there. So definitely it is going to help you to understand the overall effectiveness there, because based on that only our CAC documentation has been created, which is actually mapped with most current questions, and definitely based on that only the response is going to offered from the provider side itself there. So I must say there the first level we have under the star is called the self-assessment, and within this self-assessment we have this Cac documentation, and as I told that this Cac documentation is properly mapped with the CCM 3.01. Previously we were having the 3.0, and definitely based on the number of controls and the control domain is also less there, but now it recently had was increased there. So this is the level first, which is the self-assessment. But definitely based on the self-assessment information, or you can say self-assessment documentation, you are not going to select any of the provider there. So what exactly the next thing is there? So after the self-assessment, you need to undergo the third-party audit. So the next thing we have is a third-party audit, and third-party audit is basically to make sure that independent assessment against the provider has been done there. And definitely in this case it's the level 2. So I must say the level 2 is there, and level 2 is actually the third party audit. And normally this third party audit is going to done by the AICPA approved organization. So I must say there American Institute of Certified Public Accountancy, so AICPA approved organization will be doing the SSAE, Statement on a Standard for Attestation Engagement 16 based audit. So AICPA approved organization will be doing the SSAE 16 based audit. Now this SSAE 16 based audit has replaced the security auditing standard. So previously it was SAS 70, which was one of the most proper framework we are actually utilizing for the audit, but now it is replaced with SSAE 16, which recently had upgraded with SSAE 18 now as well there. And under this SSAE 16, we have 3 different type of audit. One is called Service Organization Control Level 1. We have SOC 2 and we have SOC 3. So that is the 3 different type of audit actually we are going to perform there, right? Now the difference between SOC 1, SOC 2 and SOC 3 is SOC 1 is basically in SOC 1 we are actually going to focus on the audit, specifically on the internal control related to financial reporting. Okay, so how exactly the internal control which is focused on the financial reporting is working there, how exactly it has been conducted, and how effective that controls are, that one is actually going to be checked under the SOC 1 audit there. If I'm going for the SOC 2 audit, we have the 5 different key principle. Based on that, the audits are actually going to perform there. So when I'm going for the SOC 2, so SOC 1, as I told that it is going to check the internal control over the financial reporting, ICFR short there, I must say. And SOC 2 is basically based on 5 trust principles. And those 5 trust principles are confidentiality, process integrity, then we have security, privacy, and I must say even the over and all this availability as well. Yeah. So you can say that you just remember the CIA, which is the basic principles there, and apart from that you must add this particular security and the privacy there. So that is the 5 trust principle which is actually being utilized by the SOC 2 to do the audit against the provider control itself there. And definitely based on that, it is actually going to be checked how effective the provider controls are there. And based on that only you can trust on them to implement the solutions there. Even the SOC 3.
Sorry, what's the second one stand for?
Process integrity.
Process integrity. Okay.
Yeah. So we have this particular 5 trust principles here. Even SOC 3, I must say, it is using the same trust principle there, but the difference between SOC 2 and SOC 3 is SOC 3 is actually used for general people. I must say there it is actually the brief control report about the provider there. So how exactly the provider is operating, whether the controls are effective or not, that one briefly has been given there under SOC 3, which is based on the 5 trust principle only there. So I must say, if this particular controls are actually published, the brief information has been given there, and based on that only we are going to simply rely on that. So it is actually for general people. But if I'm going for the SOC 2, which is actually a very detailed report on the audits there, it should be available to the customers, okay, who is going to sign the NDA, and then only these informations are actually going to share with them there. So this SOC 2 report is basically very detailed report about the internal controls there. So definitely if it is leaked, okay, it may create a major issue to the organization, because in that case you are actually defining a detailed structure of the controls there, so which could be the devastating for the providers itself there. So we have this particular SOC 2 itself. Now there is one more thing which we need to understand about this SOC 1 and SOC 2. So when we are doing the SOC 1 audit and SOC 2 audit, basically this SOC 1 audit and SOC 2, both audits can be performed by two way. I must say there are type 1 audit and we have type 2 audit there in both of them, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 audit is basically point in time audit report there. It means what exactly the current status of the control, that one is actually given there under the type 1. So type 1 report is a snapshot view of service organization's internal control at a single point in time. Okay. But in case of type 2, we are going to review the internal control over a period of time, and it could be 6 months or it could be 12 months as well there. So I can say there much more granular controls I will be getting into the type 2 only, because here I'm actually checking over a period of time there. It could be 6 months or it could be 12 months there. But if you're trying to get the exact status of now, that one is actually given in another type 1. But over the 6 months or over 12 months, the status of the controls has been there in the type 2 only.
Is the type 2 then, by the nature of the control or the audit, sorry, more about processes than type 1?
It is also going to be the process, because as I told that yes, it is also going to check the process and their integrity there, but also they are going to check all of the other components as well there.
And does
So
the type 1 also audit processes or more?
It's see, the principles are going to same there, but the only difference what I'm saying there, that what are the control effectiveness for now as of now there, and what are the control status from the last 6 months. So we are actually trying to check the overall status, not for now, because might be because of the audit, you are going to do everything right there, okay. But at the same time, if I'm going to check the overall status there, so that one is going to give me the clear picture about like how they are actually handling. So I must say the complete and the detailed understanding I will be getting in this particular type 2 only there. Okay. So these are the different audits we have there. And I must say there, now this is the important question for your examination is also going to be there. So you must remember that if in case of third party audit, who is actually going to initiating the audit there? So we have remembered the AICPA approved organization only who is going to do the SSAE 16 or 18 based audit. And there are three different type of audit we have under that: SOC 1, SOC 2, and SOC 3. And what is the SOC 1, what is SOC 2, and what's SOC 3? That one you need to remember. Remember, type 1 and type 2 audit is only for SOC 1 and SOC 2 there, not for the SOC 3 there. So once the third party audit is done, now we are having a complete picture of the provider control, right? And if the provider control is under your compliance there, so definitely now the provider have one more responsibility to maintain this particular structure. And to maintain this particular structure, provider have to continuously, okay, provider have to continuously verify there, and definitely they have to implement the control as it is deviating there. So we have the third level, which is called as the continuous monitoring.
Can you repeat AICPA full form, please?
AICPA for American Institute for Certified Public Accountancy there. Okay.
Okay.
So what we had seen till now, that STAR registry, or I must say there, Cloud Security Alliance STAR framework, is actually providing a proper way of understanding the control effectiveness on the provider there, and definitely to check it out the third-party audits as well there. So this 3 level is going to definitely help you to select the provider, and based on that you can actually rely onto their controls itself there. So these are the very important information we have there, specifically from the auditor side there. So that one needs to be considered even for the examination as well there. So apart from that, remember, auditors are also going to help you to do the privacy audit there. So they will be also checking the privacy impact audit, which is going to help specifically federal agencies to compile with the applicable privacy law and the regulations governing an individual privacy, and to ensure the CIA of an individual personal information at every stage of development and the operation as well there. So auditors are going to overall provide you the clear picture over the providers there. Now remember, there's so many different compliance standards we have, and definitely when we are doing the audit, one more purpose we have for the audit is to actually to get certified himself there. So the consumer can rely on their products very easily there. So when you go to any of the provider website, you can actually check their compliance standards. So there's so many different compliance standards they have there. So let me just open one of the provider compliance page here. So again, I'm checking out the AWS. So this is the AWS compliance programs there. So if you go to this particular page, which is the aws.amazon.com/compliance/programs there. So in this particular compliance program, you will be having all the different compliance standards and the programs which they actually right now, compiling with there. So I must say, we have the Cloud Security Alliance already here. Apart from that, ISO 9001, which is actually the global quality standard. We have the security management control, which is ISO 27001. So I must say 27001 is not a cloud specific control, but if you're looking for cloud specific control on top of the 27001, then we have the ISO 27017 there, which is the cloud specific control we have. So 27001 needs to be there, because even the cloud is also based on the same IT technology which we are utilizing for our traditional IT environment. So it is not like we have a different hardware here. But yes, we on the cloud we have some cloud specific technology, like normally I must say their management console. If we are very much relying on the APIs there, we are very much relying on the controllers there. So these different technical components needs to be counted here as well. So we have 27001. On top of that, we have 27017, and then 27018, which is actually for the personal data protection there. And other levels also we have there, like PCI DSS level 1. Remember, PCI is actually divided into 4 different levels there, and it is the based on number of transactions per year they are doing. Based on that particular levels are going to be achieved there. Now each of the customer who is actually having the such payment gateways there, totally depends on like how much transactions they are doing. So I must say that if my transaction is greater than 6 million, then we are at the level 1. So for the level 1 customer, they have to maintain a very strict control, and in that case, every controls are actually going to be verified, and definitely it is going to be tested, and based on that only they will be getting the PCI DSS level 1 certification. But the thing is to make sure that I'm doing transaction on a correct platform. I must have to make sure that even the platform is also protected in the same way my application infrastructure or might be my network infrastructure is. So cloud provider is having responsibility to make sure that they are offering their customers, their consumers, for this particular platform. I must say that for the PCI DSS level 1 transaction, okay, they require a complete compliance infrastructure, so they can build application on top of that and they can do this transaction there. So they are offering you the PCI DSS level 1 infrastructure. I must say their proper platform as well. Now, if I am doing transaction below 6 million, so I must say if it is between 1 to 6 million, then we are at the level 2. And if it is 20,000 to 1 million, then it is at the level 3. And if it is below 20,000, then it is actually the level 4. So this level is actually going to be decided by the number of transactions you are doing, and definitely this number of transactions defining the number of customers you are also handling there. And because of that, how strict your control should have to be, that one is actually given there under the PCI DSS level 1, level 2, level 3, or level 4.
What you're showing here is
Is the
AWS.
global standard?
Huh?
Is the
Sorry.
global standards there?
Right. So this is all. These are reports by AWS, right?
Yeah, this is the reports for the AWS. So AWS has been tested, and based on that, this global standard and the compliance program has been published by the AWS, and they are actually
Right.
going to provide you the necessary evidence as well, through which you can say that yes, we are compliant with 27,017 or 27,018, right?
Okay.
So these are the global standard we have. And apart from that, we have some regional standards, and seats for the America. We have the CGIS, Criminal Justice Information Service. We have Department of Defense Data Processing Standard. We have FedRAMP, we have FERPA, we have FIPS, we have FISMA, and multiple other component, which is actually relevant for this. Then for the Asia Pacific, we have, for the Europe and Middle East, we have, and others also. You can actually check it out there. Certification or attestation has been given there as well. So if I go at the first level, if you remember, we had just discussed about the Cloud Security Alliance there, and under the Cloud Security Alliance, if I go inside, see, it is given there that CSA is a not-for-profit organization, what they are doing, and under that we have this particular 3 level, which is CSA self-assessment. We have the attestation and certification, and then we have the continuous monitoring as well there. So each of the information, if specifically under the self-assessment, you can download their CAC report. You can see here, AWS participate in the voluntary CSA Trust and Assurance Registry self-assessment to document our compliance with CSA published best practices there. And we publish our completed CAC on the AWS website there. And you can directly from this particular link download and check the overall information what they had published there. For the third party, you can see here we have the SOC 2 reports there, and under the SOC 2 report, overall control effectiveness has been actually going to be tested. CSA star level 2 certification is basically based on what? ISO 27001. So all the controls are actually has been taken from there only there. And apart from that, we have the continuous monitoring, which is making sure that my infrastructure is going to comply with all the requirements set forth by the Cloud Security Alliance there itself. Similar thing, if you go to the Azure, even on the Azure also, you will be getting this particular global standard. So Azure compliance programs, if I search there, I must be able to see all of the compliance programs which the Azure is actually right now dealing with. So if I go there, you can see the similar thing is available. So we have the global standards. So we have CIS benchmark, we have CSS star attestation, star certification, and self-assessment. So these are the different standards we have. We have 20,000, 22,301 for the business continuity, 27,001, which we had just seen there, 27,017, which is cloud specific control, 27,018, which is the privacy control there, and others. Then we have for the US government, we have the regional standards and others, industry specific standard as well there, like PCI DSS and others specifically. Specifically for India, we don't have that much, but for India, see, there is one compliance standard also we have, that is called METI, okay, which is actually a program launched under the Meghraj product there. So, you know, these are the different compliance standards we have there, and which we can actually utilize. So if you're actually worried there whether my information are going to be processed properly or not, so definitely you should be following a certain standard and the compliance programs there. So this documentation or this information is actually going to help you to understand the overall effectiveness of the control, and based on that you can actually check it out, the provider which is actually going to be best for you there, right? So this is what we have there under the audits. So I must go now here. Now there is one more role we have. So what we had seen till now, we have the provider, we have broker, and we have auditor. Apart from the broker and the auditor, we have the cloud carrier as well. So cloud carrier, I must say that it is actually a intermediary which is provide the connectivity and transport of cloud services between the provider and the consumer. So as a simple example, I can take the ISP as well. If you don't have the ISPs, internet service provider, definitely we are not able to connect with the cloud, and in that case we are not able to do the services. So it is the internet service providers which is actually carrying my request to the providers, and from there whatever the action I'm actually requesting is going to be committed there, right? It is actually going to be conducted there. Like suppose committing, you are trying to commit any data or trying to do some processing there and any other things there. So apart from the ISP, we must take one more example here. You know, in case of AWS or in case of Azure, there are some options we have, like whenever you have to transport a huge amount of data. Let's take an example. You have almost petabyte of data there, which you wanted to migrate onto the cloud. But to migrate that huge amount of data, either you are going to use a dedicated line. I must say there's some sort of link which is going to connect me directly with my provider, or I must be doing this particular process offline, right? Because definitely if I'm going to do online, even I'm going to do through a dedicated link, it will take a good amount of time there to be to transfer that particular data to the provider, and then after I'm going to start doing the processing from there. So is there any option we have through which we can actually transport the data offline there? So yes, we have the option. So there are multiple technologies has been given there. So one of the simple example we can take from the AWS side. In AWS, we have a feature that is called as Snowball. So if you're using this Snowball feature, so in Snowball, they're actually going to transport you their hard drives. I must say they're a huge box, which is actually equipped with multiple hard drives there, and that one is actually transported at your door there, I must say, and in your organization there. So at whatever the given address there, as per the request, that one is going to deliver at your doorstep there. And then you are going to, you know, simply put all of your data onto their hard drives in the Snowball, and after that you are going to encrypt it there. So make sure that there's an encryption by default available here. Once it is uploaded and encrypted, then you are going to send this Snowball device back to the AWS data center where you want to upload the data. It means you should know there in which data center you are trying to upload this data. Might be to your nearest data center there. And once it is reached there, the AWS is going to notify you, and after getting the notification, you can start doing the process of migration from the Snowball to the AWS storage location there. And after that, you can start doing that. So I must say that transport agent, which is involved in this particular communication, is also going to falls under this cloud carrier only there. So basically, these are the intermediary, which is actually providing proper connectivity and transport of cloud services, which is must be between the consumer and the provider only. This is actually to make service and definitely the overall, I can say the security, compliant with the organization requirement itself there. So I hope now the cloud carrier is also clear to you all. Any question for me till now?
Nothing from me.
Great. Although we had already discussed about different services which is offered by the provider, so I'm not going in that much of depth there. Definitely it is not required as well. because we are still in the chapter number first, I must say there. And in the chapter number first only, we have so many topics given there. So we can go in that level of depth only. But although it is not required, because at the same time we also need to finish the whole syllabus in the given time there. So although there are so many things is discussed there, which we can discuss more granularly, more deftly there, but again from the CCSP examination point of view, it's not required actually there. So I'm not going in that much of depth, but just for your information, you can actually download a documentation from the internet which is freely available there. So if you have any specific confusion there, you can get this documentation, which I'm also going to upload into the same directory, which is shared by you in the Microsoft team. But what I'm actually checking it out here, that let me just verify again there, because I started checking. Yeah, now it is working fine there for me. Great. So let me just upload some documentation there as well, so we can work on that particular same part there. Okay, so this is one of the documentation available there, so which I had discussed till now, 500, 292, and apart from that 800, 145 as well there. So that is the two documentation you can actually refer. But although from the examination point of view, it's not required to go in that much of depth there, because all in all we need to understand the overall entities we have in a reference architecture, and you must know there what are their rules there. That's it. So just quickly, CSP, cloud service provider, although having multiple responsibility, but business support is also one of them. And when I'm going for the business support within the provider, their responsibility is to make sure that they can manage new customers. So I must say customer management. Their responsibility is also to define a contract, have a proper inventory of the services. I must say the inventory management. They are also going to take care of the accounting and billing. They are also going to take care of the reporting and audit. And definitely they are also going to fix a price on there. Apart from that, provider is also having responsibility to do the provisioning and configuration, specifically the rapid provisioning there. So the moment a consumer is going to request, it should have to be automatically, migrate there. So definitely the automation should have to be the part of the cloud there. If whenever there is a new resource available there in the market, that new resource should have to be reflected into the portal, or I must say then in their service catalog there. They also should responsible for the proper monitoring and reporting. Plus, because it's a metered service, so they are actually going to provide you the proper information about how much bandwidth you had consumed, how much processing you had done there, and how much storage you are actually using, and definitely even the active users also, because these are some of the metrics based on that you are going to be charged there. Plus, proper SLA management for the proper quality of service. So I must say that they are having the responsibility of business support. They are having the responsibility of the provisioning and configuration. Okay. And apart from that, very importantly, they are also having a responsibility to do the portability. So what exactly this portability meaning is? So remember, in terms of portability, I must say that two type of portability we have. One is the data portability and one is the application portability. But the meaning is same there. Definitely, it is depends on the component. So when I'm saying data portability, then data portability is basically trying to make sure that consumers can copy the data into or out of a cloud. Okay, very easily there. So whenever they wanted to port it out from one provider to another provider, that one they can do it very easily there. So based on that, I must say that because of this data portability, I will be getting a feature, and because of that, I am not going to be locked in with any of the providers. See, there are some issue we have with the providers, and one of the common issue with the provider we are facing it is called as the vendor lock-in. Vendor lock-in. So this issue can possible if the providers are utilizing some proprietary technology and might be improper, contract has been set up by the provider with you there. Definitely it is the due diligence effort as a consumer you have is actually going to save you here. So if you had done your due diligence properly against the provider, I must say checking their compliance standard, checking their controls, they're checking their effectiveness over and all, these are actually going to help you to select a proper provider there. But if you fail to do that, you can be locked in with the provider. Let's take an example that you had created an application for cloud, and you had done a very huge investment in that particular application to make that particular application working well for that particular platform. So you had done a huge investment there. Now after some time you're not getting the proper performance, and this time it is not an issue from your application side, it could be the issue from the platform side on which it is hosted there. I must say it is the provider issue, and because of that issue you're not able to get the proper outcome, right? So now what you are going to do, if the proper contract is established there, definitely you can get your proper reimbursement there based on that particular negligence there, or might be improper, if improper features are not proper features are not given there by the provider, you may be going to left that particular provider, but improper contract is actually going to restrict you to move it out there. Second thing, because of the huge investment you had made, so it is also not feasible for you to move it into another provider, because might be the provider is using some proprietary technology and that technology is actually restricting you to move it into another platform, because if you move it there, definitely you have to make multiple changes, which itself requires some more investment there, and might be you're not ready for that particular part there. So this situation is actually going to lock you with a certain provider, and this is actually called as the vendor locking. So definitely that time we have to check the data portability and the interoperability there. So it's not only the portability where it is actually guaranteeing you how easily you can port out your data from one provider to another there. So if they are using some standard technology, or I must say the standard formats, so definitely this porting is not going to be a major issue for you there. But if it is some proprietary techniques there, definitely it is going to be a major concern. So you have to check what exactly the process or the mechanism they're actually utilizing it for doing the overall porting capability there. Another option we have is the interoperability. I must say the service interoperability, which is the ability of consumer to use their data and services across multiple provider with unified management interface. To understand this particular one, let's take a very simple example. Suppose you had encrypted your data and your data is hosted and you're doing processing on AWS, you're doing processing on Azure, and might be you're doing processing on Google as well there. So for the processing, you have to definitely upload the data onto those particular locations. So suppose you are utilizing all of the provider there, and mostly organizations are going to use all of the providers only there, because all of them are actually having some capability which is actually making them unique there. So in this case, might be you're going to upload the data onto that all platform, and you also require security. So you're going to encrypt the data, but you want to make sure that control over the encryption is under your hand. So you have your local KMS server, key management server, which is actually handling the key management feature. Now you're encrypting the data, you're uploading it here on this particular platform. But whether this KMS is working on this AWS platform, Azure platform, or Google Cloud platform, it is actually going to define by the interoperability part there. So I must say that how easily I can actually communicate with any diverse platform, that one is actually going to define under the interoperability there. So service interoperability is one of the ability for the provider, which is going to help consumer to use their data and services across multiple platform and the provider with the same interface there, what we are using right now. So portability and interoperability, both are actually going to help you to, make sure that we are doing business, very properly there. And definitely it is going to let you move it out from one provider to another provider without any worry there, because we are always going to utilize some standard technique there. Now, previously, I must say there, some providers have started utilizing some proprietary technology there. Even now as well, there are some techniques that the technology we have, which is actually restricting you there. But definitely, if you have this interoperability and portability requirement so much, so in that case, we have to utilize only the standard services there. So it is the consumer also have to check it out there to whether I need to utilize some feature which should have to be interoperable with another platform as well. Like suppose if I'm going to utilize the the AWS their own database services, or might be Azure their own database services, there might be a possibility that they are not going to communicate with each other, and because of that, it could be a major risk on the business you are actually taking it out there. So before utilizing these proprietary features, even they are actually providing you fastest level of speed and definitely the latency as well there. You have to actually think twice there whether it is actually capable for me to make it interoperable with another services, or might be another provider as well there. So this is
There must,
another thing.
sorry,
Mhm.
there must be many situations where it's not that clear whether it's interoperable or not, right? I mean, for me, like Active Directory, is that
Mhm.
portable or not portable? Don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so you're saying that whether this LDAP techniques are actually going to be utilized by my another platform or not. That is what you're
No, I
looking for.
wasn't talking about LDAP. I was talking about Active Directory. It's
Okay.
Active Directory as a source of data. Could I port my Active Directory infrastructure to some other directory infrastructure? Uh,
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, like sometimes it's not clear to me. Yes, you could
Okay.
access some of the data through LDAP, but there's also a lot of the data that is probably not portable.
Yeah, if you are actually concerned from the data, specifically from the cloud provider side, yes, it is definitely a concern we have there, because might be provider has not offered me a tool which is going to help me to migrate my existing users to the cloud side there. So definitely this is going to one of the major concern for you there. Like in case of Azure, we are having option that we can actually migrate the existing user from uh, on-prem Active Directory to Azure Active Directory there. But do we have such options also given there for the AWS? Now, these are actually some of the concern you must be taking out there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so yep. So these are some of the things which we have to check it out there. So I must say that portability and interoperability is also one of them. And apart from those three components, we also have the security and privacy requirement, which is actually going to fulfill by the provider itself there. So this is what we have from this particular 592 documentation there, which is going to help you to make your organization compliant, and definitely it is going to help me to run the business properly there. So let's move it and onto the slide there. I'm actually spending very less time with this particular slide. Yeah. So we had discussed already the logical model. Okay, and building blocks of the cloud is very simple and straightforward. In the cloud, we are utilizing the same building blocks which we are utilizing for our on-prem environment. So I must say there, the compute, and must say the storage, and must say the network. These are all actually the same thing we have. So nothing different here actually. And these are the some of the drivers which is actually going to force you to go for the cloud. And till now, I must say that these things are actually very much straightforward, clear to you all, like desire to reduce IT complexity, consumption-based pricing, and business agility. And under that, all the component which has been given there, I think till now it is clear to you all, like risk reduction. On the cloud, you are going to test your services first, and then only you are going to migrate. I must say that even on the platform, providers had given you all the different options where actually you can do the testing first, and if you feel that it is going to work best for your production environment there, then only you can lift it there onto the cloud. So we have minimum chances of risk there. Specifically, it is not going to handle the load, or might be it is going to crash there, or might be some malicious behavior can possible into this application. These things is actually not going to be the concern here. We have the scalability, where the large number of resources we can access it very easily there. We have the elasticity effect, which is going to change as per the user requirement there. So remember, might be right now you have only 2 processor requirement, and might be in the future you have the 20 processor requirement. So it will detect the need, and based on that it will going to do the necessary changes for you there. So we have the consumption based pricing, and definitely based on the virtualization, and because of the virtualization, I must say there, we can aggregate multiple users onto the same platform. And definitely in this case, I am going to pay only for the amount of resource which I required there, nothing more than that. And because of that, the cost is going to pretty much less here. And very importantly, we are getting a very agile business environment because of the mobility. We can work from any of the location there, and definitely the collaboration and innovation, which is actually enhanced. One of the simple example we can take is the GitHub, but apart from that, Bitbucket, SourceForge, these are some of the components we can actually take as an example, which is increasing our overall collaborations there. So this is the another thing which we have, which we can actually consider there. So these are some of the drivers we have there for the cloud. And technology implementation options we have there. Remember, we already, I think, had discussed about the MSP and the CSP there. The difference between MSP and CSP is MSP, in case of MSP, everything is actually going to, I must say that it is the consumer who is actually dictating everything, like which technology, what kind of services needs to be implemented onto my data center. That one is actually going to be decided by the consumer. But in case of CSP, cloud service provider, this one is actually going to dictated by the provider this time only. Yes, provider is having responsibility to understand the requirement of the consumer, what they are targeting, and around that they are going to building their compliance infrastructure there. But if they fail to do that, definitely they can lose that particular customer, or I must say that group of customers there. So proactively, provider is going to identify the requirement, and based on that they are building. It is very rare that provider is doing the commensurate changes based on your requirement there. Like take an example, there is a live example I had seen there previously. Dubai government was not actually ready to lift their data outside their country. So they are not ready to lift the data onto the Azure there because they don't have any data center. But Microsoft after that decided, because of the kind of revenue they were expecting from them, based on that, to open a data center, and after that they had migrated their data onto the cloud side itself there. So this is one of the live example, but again, such kind of changes the providers can do only if they can see the big relationship with you there. And definitely it is the revenue which will actually also decide there, because ultimately providers are also looking to get some benefits there. So, but for you, they're not going to make any changes there specifically for a specific. So I must say there 90% of chances are there that for the particular individual consumer, they will not make any necessary changes there. Yes, it is the broker who's actually going to make the infrastructure compliant for you as per your requirement. But if you're going to contact directly the provider and you're saying that I require this standard to be also integrated, so definitely it is the business need. They will be actually checking there how much more customers are looking for the similar kind of a standard in that particular area or in that particular region there. And based on that, they will be looking to get this particular certification and compliance. Remember, provider itself is having different compliance standard itself to follow. So to integrate a new compliance standard, it could be very much challenging for them there, because sometimes the compliance standards are also conflicting with each other as well there. So in that case, it can be the one of the major issue which the provider can face there. So primary drivers in implementation of model selection is the enforcement of governance or acceptance of CSP IT governance process there. And this is the reason software as a service, okay, service model is actually one of the negotiated example of this particular governance there. And in case of infrastructure as a service, because it is mostly the consumer who is responsible for everything, so definitely here we can implement what we actually require there based on that. Okay, so based on our discussion, there are some question for you I have here, and might be you are interested in solving this particular one. So just I'm going to take a few questions there, not all of them. Like what is the difference between segregation and isolation? Any one of you is interested in solving this question? Difference between segregation and isolation.
Segregation is having different spaces for separate customers, and isolation is making sure that those separate spaces are completely that nothing can be reached from one space to the other space.
So you must say that the proper control has been implemented on their space there, so
Yes.
it can be protected, correct? Okay, one more thing just I wanted to discuss here, that very much same in like we had discussed in 800 145, there is a separate documentation given there by the ISO, which is very much aligned with NIST standard 100 145 there. We have 17788 from ISO and 17789, which is actually the reference architecture, which is completely very much similar to like 500 292 documentation we had seen there. So these are the two different documentation which has been given there from the I must say there from the ISO side there. So even that one too, as a reference architecture, you can actually utilize it there for implementation of the different roles and responsibility itself there. So when we're talking about the reference architecture, there are some key activity we have onto the provider side. Now this one, I'm not going to discuss everything here because definitely it is a very different roles has been given there. So to define each role is not actually feasible here, specific on the session. But what I'm going to suggest you, there is a document which I'm going to provide you there. I say the book, and in that book, all the different roles which has been there in the cloud service customer and in the provider. So you must be remembering all the roles there, because there should be a key question in the examination you will be getting, which is basically based on the role, and definitely their description will be provided there. So there should be a mix and match question you will be getting in your examination, where you have to match the exact role to the exact description there. So it's a very important question for the examination, for the CCSP examination there. So I'm just describing some of the key roles there, and after that I will be moving it out here. But yes, one more key thing which I should discuss here from the CCSP point of view, that we have one entity that is called as the CSP, Cloud Service Provider, and we are already aware of who this particular entity is actually going to provide services to the consumer. Service provider is going to offer services normally to the cloud service consumer. So I must say there is one more role we have. One is called CSC. So you say cloud service customer or you say cloud service consumer, whatever. Now what is that service customer? So when I'm saying service customer, they will be taking services from the provider. They are making the necessary changes, or might be they are doing the proper configuration, and then they are offering that services to their end user. So remember, each of the corporate is having their own group of user who they are actually serving, right? So those corporates, I must say, is actually going to falls under this cloud service customer side there. Take an example. I'm running an organization there, and I'm serving you all. In this case, you are going to be the end user for me, and because I am doing all of your processing onto the Azure or might be on AWS. So CSP here is the provider. I am the cloud service consumer who is doing the processing onto the provider, and end user data is actually getting processed there. Or I must say this end user is basically the cloud consumer. So whenever you're getting this particular term, cloud service consumer or cloud service customer, so you must identify this is the intermediary who is actually relying on providers to do the processing. Remember, in between, we might also have the broker. So this consumer is actually going to connect with a broker to get the required services based on their need. So definitely it could be, and mostly it is the broker always going to be available there in between there. Now, based on that, I must say that provider is actually the data processors who is actually going to process your data. Okay. Consumer is the data controllers who is actually controlling the end user data. And definitely the owner here is this particular cloud consumer itself there. So these are the owner. So owner will hand over their data for the processing to the controller, and controller will provide that data for the processing to the provider. So the actual processing will be happen on provider side only there. But is the processor is going to be responsible for that particular data? So I must say no. See, overall accountability, the responsibility is actually under the hand of CSC, cloud service customer or consumer there, because they are taking the data from the end user. And this is the reason cloud service consumer is having a different agreement with provider and a different agreement with the consumer. And definitely it is pretty much obvious as well, because both of the side, the expectations are different. And based on that only, the overall configuration needs to be established there. So that is what one more thing which we need to understand here, that the provider is just the data processor who's going to process the data. So it is the cloud service consumer responsibility to select the proper provider based on their requirement, and their requirement is actually going to be established based on the number of user, or you can say the end user they are servicing there.
Can you
So you
give
must
an
know.
example, please?
Sorry, come again.
Could you give an example, please, of something like that?
Like for the example, we can, as I told there, like ABC organization, okay, is sending their data for the processing on the Azure. So in this case, Azure is going to be what? Data processors. Okay, and this ABC organization is actually going to controlling the data for the consumer. So let's take an example. Suppose I'm working for ABC organization. So what ABC organization will do, they will be actually carrying my profile and they are sharing my profile to the customers there, other customers. So it is the responsibility of the ABC organization to make sure that my data is protected properly. Where they are sharing, how they are sharing, that is none of my concern. But yes, one concern is there with me always, that my data should have to be protected. How they're processing, definitely that one is going to handle by the ABC. So it is the cloud service consumer who will make sure the data is protected properly. And for that, if they are sharing the data with any of the another entity, like in case of Azure, consumer have to understand that Azure is actually having all the different compliance and the privacy standards already fulfilled there. So they can
Let me
actually.
see if I can ask a more concrete example. I think I'm starting to understand it, but I'm not sure. So if we host applications for our customers, if we were to put our applications on the cloud in Azure or AWS, our servers, that we then provide our software on for our customers,
In use.
we would then be a cloud service controller.
You are going to be the consumer, correct? And you are the controller for the data. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And definitely, and because
the
this application
end customer would be our customer who uses our software.
Application, correct.
Yeah.
And because this application is hosted onto the provider, so definitely the processing, actual processing is happening where? Onto the provider side only there. So definitely they are actually going to be the data processor only there, who is processing the data on behalf of you there. So
Yeah.
all you have to just check that the platform on which you're hosting the application is secure and compliant enough there to make sure the data is getting protected there. And this is the reason you are actually going to, check the different audit standard before you're going to rely on them there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I must say in this case that if I'm a provider, cloud service provider, or might be I'm a cloud service consumer, or I must say that cloud service customer. So don't confuse, consumer and customer is the same thing here. Each of them is having some responsible person there, definitely who's going to do the activities there. So there are some roles given there in each of the side. So I must say from the consumer side, cloud service consumer side or cloud service customer side, we have the cloud service user who is actually going to use the cloud. Remember, these are the terms which is utilized in 17788 documentation. So if I'm going to reference the ISO IEC 17788, these are the proper terms of that particular documentation. So we have the cloud service user. So cloud service user is the entity which is using the cloud services there. So I must say is the end user who is actually going to use the cloud services. Then we have the cloud cloud service administrator. Now administrator main role is actually to test cloud services, monitor cloud services, administrate security of the cloud services, provide overall users report on the cloud services, and if there is any problem, they will also address the problem. So I must say administrator is going to take care of the service what they are going to offer to their end user, or I must say to their cloud service user. So administrator is the user who is going to test, monitor, administrate the services onto the cloud. Then we have cloud service business manager. Cloud service business manager who is going to oversees the business and billing administration. So overall business and billing administrations are actually going to handle by this business manager there. So they are the one who is going to purchase the cloud services on behalf of the cloud service user. And they are also going to request audit report as necessary from the provider. So remember, cloud service consumer is the entity who is sending data onto the provider side for the processing. So business manager is not only going to set up the business and billing administration there, but also he's going to purchase the cloud services as per the requirement of the organization. And for that service, he also going to request for the audit report there. So if I'm utilizing the Azure firewall, I am having a responsibility to check it out, the overall control which has been actually going to offered by the firewall there, and plus who has certified that firewall, so I can trust on that particular product there. So this is the business manager who is going to do the overall business administration there. And then there is one more role, that is cloud service integrator. Who is going to connect and integrate existing system and services to the cloud. So suppose you have some product like might be the KMS product there, or might be some existing application there which you wanted to integrate with the cloud. In that case, cloud service integrator is going to check the overall portability and interoperability, and based on that it will do the integration there. So these are some of the roles which has been discussed under the cloud service customer side. Now, see, these roles and responsibilities are very much important from the first chapter there, specifically from the examination point of view. And definitely, if you're going to work as a consultant then in the cloud there, these roles and responsibilities going to play a very huge role here, because you're going to define who is going to be responsible for that one there. So specifically for the examination point of view, it will be best if you can actually divide them into smaller section, and you can remember these particular roles and responsibility there. So definitely you have to go through at least with the roles and responsibility properly there. It's not feasible to discuss all the roles and responsibilities here, because again it's a very much. So I will be actually suggesting your application might be you can download on your mobile platform, and that one is actually going to help you to do some practice as well there. Although the application is having the mix of data, so I must say it is actually all the different chapters are there, so that one you can actually utilize. So I must say the application name is CCSP. So you can search onto the App Store, and there you will be able to find the multiple CCSP based application which is freely available there, which is actually going to help you for the examination preparation as well. So on your leisure time you can actually check it out, and definitely you can practice the things there. So it is the CCSP certified cloud security application available there. So that one you can download there. I must say that rating of that application as of my mobile platform, I must say that it is the 5.0. So it must be, and it is the developer is Alexandru. So you might be utilizing that particular application for your testing, and to make sure that you're regularly checking the questions as well there. That because there's some set of questions also given in the mobile platform which is going to help you to practice there. Okay, so I think this is clear to you all. Do we have any question till now, what we had discussed?
Oh, looks good. Yep.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, great. So yeah, so these are some of the things which we have to check it out specifically from this particular section there. Now coming back again to the some of the points which we had already discussed in our previous sections there. Now service model, I'm again moving back into the service model after this roles and responsibilities there, right? So when I'm saying service model, we already know that there are three service model we have, right? One is the IaaS, one is the PaaS and SaaS. Now, which one is actually best? Definitely, it is totally depends on your requirement, right? What exactly requirement? I must say, if I'm having governance requirement to be at the utmost priority there, definitely I have to go for the IaaS. That is the only option is actually going to be available there. But suppose if your governance requirement is almost zero, I must say that I can rely on to the provider side to what they are providing me. So software as a service is actually going to be the best option there. Although remember, with the help of contract, we can actually negotiate such environment as well. But definitely it is going to be pretty much less as compared to the PaaS and the IaaS there. So we already know in IaaS, the capability provided to the consumer is to provision processing, storage, network, and other fundamental computing. So in IaaS, we are having a responsibility to provision the most basic components of the system. So I must say the compute, storage, and network, all of them actually we can do the provisioning. So compute. Okay, so well enough. So let's start our discussion with some of the key features which is included with our service models there, again because it's going to be the key element for your examination preparation, and definitely you must know there as well, like why exactly you are selecting a specific service model there. So if I'm going for the infrastructure as a service, the basic component we have under the infrastructure service is the compute, network, and the storage. And as a infrastructure as a service consumer, you are definitely going to consume all of these particular services directly there, definitely with in the format of a logical component there, because definitely the physical component is not available to you there. It is only for the provider. Here the consumer does not manage or control the underlying cloud infrastructure, but remember has control over the OS, has control over the storage, and definitely they are also having the control over the deployed application there, with some of the possible limitations given there by the cloud provider itself there. Like if I'm trying to form the network, for the network I will be having option to create a segregated network for me, and then we are going to define the overall communication within that particular network itself there. So some of the key feature which is included with infrastructure as a service, which you have to remember for the examination, and definitely this key feature is going to help you to convince your consumer as well to select the service model, proper service model as per the requirement there. So one of the proper feature which has been given there by the Cloud Security Alliance, and I must say the IC Square, is the scalability. Now, in terms of scalability, the main provision or the main feature we have here, that we can rapidly increase or decrease the resources as per the requirement. So definitely the requirement might be to get the 1 gig of RAM, might be the requirement could be 4 gig of RAM, and might be the requirement could increase more than that. So this totally depends what exactly the requirement, based on that configuration also you are going to do there. Because when I'm going for the scalability, so normally here we are trying to provision the resource as per the requirement. I must say we can expand the overall component, or we can decrease, or we can remove the component as per the requirement there. So we have multiple options given there. Specifically, we have the horizontal scaling and we have the vertical scaling there. When I'm going for the vertical scaling, it means we are increasing the existing resource. So suppose I'm having a VM virtual machine which is running with 1 gig of RAM. Okay, and suddenly you require more amount of RAM there. So vertical scaling is going to increase the number of compute or number of compute instances within the given VM. So remember, in the compute there are only two components. One is the processor and another RAM. So suppose I'm having one processor, one CPU, and 1 gig of RAM there. So vertical scaling going to just increase from 1 to 2 gig of RAM, might be is as per the requirement, and from 1 to might be 2 CPU there, or 2 processor itself there. So this is the vertical scaling. But if I'm going for the horizontal scaling, we are trying to increase the number of VMs only. So whatever that, right now suppose I'm having a VM with 1 gig of RAM and with one processor, I will be filing up one more VM here with the same configuration. Okay, it means one CPU and 1 gig of RAM here as well. So ultimately we are having total of 2 CPU and 2 gig of RAM who is going to do that. But at the same time, there are multiple number of VMs you can actually fire up there. So when I go to the infrastructure as a service, so let me just go for one of the portal. So this is the Azure portal.
I have a question here. So let's say
Yes.
that if I am going to get a VM with my own license or going with Azure license, would I be able to change it later on? Or the license? Yeah.
Yes, you can change it any moment of time. If it is only the license you are saying about the operating system license, yes, you can definitely.
Anytime I can change it? Because Azure gives me, I think, the better price, right? Rather than me going with enterprise license.
Yes, Azure is actually having the flexible licensing feature, but the suppose sometime you have some existing license already available with you there. So in
Okay.
that case, you can actually utilize your own license as well instead of purchasing their license, which is definitely going to charge you something. So why
Yeah.
don't you utilize your existing one?
Okay. I'm not sure that flexibility is available or not. That's why I asked that question.
No, it is there. It is there. Like when you're creating the VM, so let's see, suppose I'm creating this virtual machine here. And
yeah, it actually asks whether I can use my own license or do
yes, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So here we are getting an option there after selecting the necessary operating system. Like suppose I'm using here Ubuntu right now. I'm selecting the Windows 10. So go there, see there's an option we have there. I confirm that I have an eligible Windows 10 license with multi-tenant hosting rights there. So that is the first option given there for the Windows 10. And if I'm going for the Windows 2012, okay, see it is the option given there. Save up to 49% with a license you already own, using the hybrid benefit there. So if you like to use an existing Windows Server license, so you can definitely select yes. Otherwise, if you're selecting no, in that case, Azure is going to offer you the license there for this operating system there.
Okay.
But yes,
What,
it's a
I'm
license.
asking, later on, if I want to change my own license, I should be able to do that as well. Right?
Yes, you can actually do that. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I know
Okay,
I can
now,
use this one. Yeah, that was the question. Whether I can change later on.
yes. The another option which I wanted to actually discuss right now here is basically on the scalability part there. So suppose I'm already having a VM, or might be I'm having my custom image there. So if I go and fire up any of the virtual machine right now, might be you are always going utilizing the public images there, which is not actually suggested according to the best practices there. So you should be creating your own golden image there, and that golden image you're only utilizing for provisioning any of the VM there. So if you are firing up any of the VM using this particular one, and definitely you also require some scaling capability there. So you can actually go and search for the scale set service. This is one of them. And in case of AWS, we have the scaling group option as well there. So if I click on this virtual machine scale set, the only option which I wanted to show you, so see there is a scale set already configured in my environment for my Azure Kubernetes services there. But let it be, because I don't want that one to be engaged. So what I'm going to show you here, see this is the option we have under the scaling. So definitely here you can actually define which image you wanted to utilize to fire any number of VM. And here it is actually going to offer you the horizontal scaling there. So if I'm going to select the scaling option, so it is asking what is the initial instance count you require there. So might be you are going to start with 2 VM, okay, or might be only 1 VM, but you have to define the basic configuration of the VM first, and that one you can define it from here. This is the size. So right now, if I'm using this existing size, which is the standard B2S, accordingly, I will be getting the 2 CPU with 4 GB of RAM, right? So this is the existing one, and you can definitely increase as per your requirement. And after defining this basic configuration, you will be defining the number of instance count. So if I'm utilizing 1, it means I will be getting 2 CPU with 4 GB of RAM right now for 1 VM. And here I need to define the scaling policy. Instead of going manually, I will be defining the custom. And here I can define the minimum number of VM and maximum number of VM I require. Might be maximum number of VM you require 50 or might be 100. So you can define as per your requirement. And now here you can define the threshold value, scale out and scale in policy there. Now, what I want, the number of resources to be increased automatically based on a trigger. So suppose the number of CPU is uses is 75%. So suppose the CPU uses 75% or greater. So if it is 75% or greater from the last 10 minutes or might be last 5 minutes, then automatically increase the number of VM by 1. So it will keep increasing until the processor is lower than this particular 75%. And if the processor utilization is lower than 25%, definitely it is totally depends on the load, then it will automatically deprovision the number of VM as well. So this is the scale in and scale out. So that is the scale in and scale out. Very much similar to that, we have the scale up options as well. So whenever you're configuring the application, there you will be getting the option of a scale up there. So normally for the PaaS services, we are having that particular option there. So we can actually increase the number of resources as well.
Right,
So this
but
is one of the.
there's also, I mean, this is what you can do when the processors are busy, but I'm going to think there's also condition that the application that runs on it has to be scalable, like the application that we host in our company. If you were to add another server that runs the same application, it's not going to scale the application because the application itself doesn't scale horizontally.
Okay, so I must say one more thing here. In that case, that your application should have to be compatible for this service as well there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because definitely if you're trying to utilize all of the cloud features there, it is not only the platform on which you're actually running, but even your application should have to also, make changes accordingly there. Otherwise, definitely you will feel a very much lag there, and that one is going to create a major issue there. Like there is one more option we have in my app service. So I'm already having one application service here. And in this application service, I'm having one option given there that is called as the scale up. Okay, so in this scale up option, I can increase the plan. So this is the PaaS service, by the way. And in the PaaS service, there are different plans given there, or you can say pricing tiers we have. I'm right now utilizing the standard pricing tier, and according to this standard pricing tier, I will be getting the 100 total of ACU for Azure Compute Unit, which is actually the grouping of the same processor and the RAM itself, I can say there. So suppose you wanted to scale up here, I can actually increase the plan here, right? But if I wanted to go to the scale out, very much similar to what we had seen in this virtual machine scale set option, we are having this option here as well, which is a scale auto scale there. And here also we can define a condition like a scale based on metric or a scale to a specific instance count, which is actually going to be the manual option given there. So definitely manual one is not recommended there, specifically if you have the variable workload there, which you feel that your workloads always vary there. So make sure that you always configuring this one. But remember, there is one more option we have. Then on a specific date, on a specific time, automatically I can increase the number of instance count to more than 4 or more than 5 there. It is up totally based on the requirement you have there. Like might be when you are whenever you are publishing some of the results there, so that time the number of users who is actually moving onto the website is more than 100 or might be more than 1,000, and you're expecting that particular traffic. So only for that moment of time you can actually increase the number of instances up to that much there, which is definitely going to cope up with the requirement there. All in all, I must say there, if I'm going to utilize this virtual machine scale set, which is actually going to fall under the infrastructure as a service only, is going to provide you the functionality of a scalability where we can provision and expand the resources as per the requirement. And remember one more thing, that scalability option we have here, which we can do by two way. One is called vertical scaling and one is called horizontal scaling. So in vertical scaling, we are increasing the existing resource. So we are not finding up a new VM with the current and required configuration. But in case of horizontal, definitely we are doing the same there. Okay, so this is the first feature.
Do you need to always fire up a new VM, or is it possible to change existing hardware configuration as well?
See, that is what I'm saying, that if I wanted to change the existing hardware configuration, it will be good to go for the vertical scaling there.
Okay.
Yeah, so like with one CPU, I can increase up to 2 CPU, with 3 CPU or 4 CPU there. No need to fire up a new VM there.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to fire up a new VM, like normally what I want that I should fire up the number of VMs there, like my up to 50 or might be 55 there. But when it is not required, automatically it will deprovision those VMs there. So it is my platform which will decide there whether I need to fire up a new VM or I am okay with that. And definitely before that, there is one more configuration you can do, and that is called load balancing. So if you have number of VMs working there, so you can also load balance the traffic between them there. So it is definitely depends on the what kind of architecture best suits your application requirement, because we cannot select any of the configuration blindly there. It is definitely the application requirement itself decide there which architecture will suits their requirement. So we have both of the options and you can select any one of them based on your workload and application requirement there.
Okay.
Okay, so this is one of the capability we have, and definitely remember this is one of the I can say one of the huge or you can say one of the best capability we have into the cloud, which is going to maintain your application capability itself there. The second feature we have in the infrastructure service, and this is the cost of ownership. In cloud, we don't need to purchase anything there. We are just going to rent what we required. And if it is not required, definitely I'm going to submit it back to the provider. You can take the simple example of the scalability only. I can fire up the number of VM up to 50, up to 100 there. But when it is not required, definitely based on the load, I will simply deprovision it. And whatever the resources I'm consuming because of that VM, it will automatically revert it back to the data center. And based on that, I have to pay only for what we are using it, right? So this is the cost of ownership. So I can say the capital expenditure in the cloud is going to be less. So all I'm paying only for the operational cost there. So with IaaS customer does not need to procure any hardware either for initial launch and implementation, or even might be if you're going to expand in the future there. So there is no any ownership of hardware we actually required here. So this is the second feature we have. Third feature I must say, that is going to provide you the high availability, and definitely it is based on the kind of a scalability configuration. And the other features are also given there. Like in case of IaaS, you will be having option to replicate your VMs in multiple zones and might be in multiple regions as well there. So it will be best that you can configure, see, we have three different level of high availability option given there. One is the availability set, like in case of Azure, I'm having availability set. So what will happen in normally in the data center might be the hardware on which your VMs are running, it is down, okay, or might be the complete rack is down. And there are two possibility first, where provider is intentionally turning your host down for the update or patches. And the second, the complete rack is down because of some power failure, or might be because of some internet failure there. So in this case, provider is always going to suggest you that if you're looking for highest level of uptime guarantee, like it is totally on you, whether you're looking for 99.9% of uptime, or you're looking for 99.95% of uptime, or you're looking for 99.99% of uptime. It's totally on you there, because provider is going to clearly mention in their SLA, service level agreement, that in what condition you will be getting the 99.9% of uptime, because IaaS is handled directly by you. So it is you who have to decide how do you configure the infrastructure to get that much of availability, because based on the configuration only you can claim for any kind of reimbursement if there is any service breach we have there. So specifically, if I'm taking the example of Azure, we have availability set, AV set. So when I'm saying availability set, it is actually providing me two components. One is called fault domain and one is called update domain. So what is this fault domain and update domain? Fault domain is they are providing you multiple racks where you can host your virtual machine. It means one VM you are going to host on one rack, and another VM you are going to host on another rack. So suppose one of the rack is down, you can still get your services from the another rack there. So definitely you have to create two VM instance to make it up. Definitely if you require a high availability, you have to identify the single point of failure, and around that you have to design the redundancy there, right? And for the redundancy, definitely you have to find more than one resources there. One resources are never going to be highly available there. So we have the availability set, and within the availabilities we have availability set, we have the fault domain. Apart from the fault domain, we have one more feature that is called update domain. And as I told, that there is a possibility that provider is going to do the update on your host. All of your virtual machines, which is also known as the guest machine, is actually running on some hardware, and that hardware is having operating system as well. And that operating system is normally what? Your type 1 hypervisors. So those hypervisors will go for the updates. And if those hypervisors are going for the update, definitely for that moment of time, your VM not be operational there. So to make sure that even that moment of time also it is operational, you are distributing number of VMs into multiple hosts, and might be that number of hosts is actually onto the same fault domain. But for a better availability, you should be placing into multiple racks there. So whenever I'm firing up a virtual machine there on the cloud, like suppose I'm going to this virtual machine here, there is an option they will be going to offer you, and that is called as the availability set. So you can see here there is an option we have under the availability option. So it is saying that how exactly you're trying to get the availability. is with the help of availability zone or might be availability set. So if I'm selecting this availability set, it is going to ask me the availability set, whether it is there or not. And if I don't have, I have to create a new one. So if I'm selecting this create new, see it is asking for how many fault domain you require and how many update domain you require. So fault domain for my subscription right now available up to 3. It means I can get up to 3 different rack, which is completely having different power source and different internet connections as well there, which is if it is down, if one of the rack is down, I can get the services from the another rack as well there. So that is going to be always up there. Okay. And we have update domain, which is actually number of host. So remember your virtual machine is hosted onto the hardware. So how many hardwares you are actually going to utilize to host your VM. So that one is going to be decided by this update domain. So it is totally on you how much you require, how much availability you require, and based on that you can actually do this replication. So the moment when you configure a VM and when you're selecting the availability set, it will automatically distribute the virtual machine into the required update domain and onto the required fault domain. And in this way, we will be getting the high availability from a single data center. So suppose I'm keeping all of my VM in East US, one of the data center there. So within data center, if there is any failure, then this one is actually going to prevent me. So if there is any failure in the rack or if there is any failure in a host, then in that case, this configuration is going to prevent me. But what about if the complete data center is down? So definitely this availability set is only redundancy within the data center. But if the complete data center is down, it is not going to provide you the availability there. In that case, you have to go for the availability zone. So in the availability option, the other option we have is the availability zone. And here now we need to define in which availability zone I wanted to keep this VM. Availability zone 1, then this second machine I will be configuring availability zone 2 and zone 3 there. So within a region, we have multiple availability zone, and within multiple availability zone, we are actually having the data centers there. So if I'm configuring the virtual machine in multiple availability zone, so it is making sure that my VM is located in multiple data center. So if one of the data center is down, I can get my services from the another data center there. And in this way, you will be having a zone redundancy there. And the another option we have definitely the region wise replication as well there. So even that one too, you can go for there. All in all, this configuration is actually going to offer you the high availability. But remember, because we are managing the IaaS, so how much availability you require, it is totally on your configuration, okay, which is actually going to define the overall availability guarantee there. Okay. Okay, so this is the another feature we have. Apart from that, I must say that metered uses, that is another feature we are getting it there. That it means, I must say always the measured service there. I'm not going to utilize this metered term here because it may confusing there, because normally they're asking you question in the examination and they're always trying to confuse you between this measured service and metered service. Remember, the standard term is measured service, although metered and measured is almost same there, because here we are paying for what we are utilizing. So first thing, it is going to be measured, and based on that only it is going to be paid there.
Is it the other term for pay as you go?
Yeah, that is the same. It is actually for the pay as you go only.
Okay.
Even the measured service.
Can I have a hard time understanding. You said two words and they sound almost the same to me.
Yeah, it is, one is measured, the other one is metered. Meter.
Metered. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, so here the customer is only going to pay for the resource what they are using there, and that is what this measured service or the metered service term is actually utilizing it there.
Wait, but metered is that you only pay for what you. Wait, now I'm confused. You're saying that measured and metered is different?
No, I'm saying it is the same. When I'm saying
I thought you were saying they're always going to confuse you and they're going to say they're different. Okay, all right, okay.
No. Actually, what is happening there is sometimes they are asking you question, and they are trying to utilize these terms, metered service and measured service.
Yeah.
So remember, the standard term which has been given there by the NIST is measured. not metered. Although metered and measured are same there, but they
Okay.
are always trying to check it out the standard term in the documentation what they had utilized. This is the reason I focused on this measured service, not on the metered service there, right? Okay, and there is one more benefit I must say there, which is actually I can say the hidden benefit, and this is the potential for green data center. I must say the green environment there. The reason is, if suppose we all are consolidating our services on a common data center there, the benefit is definitely our environment is going to be safer there. Okay, so this is what exactly this green data center is actually meaning is there. Okay, so these are some of the benefit which has been discussed as per the IC square documentation. So make sure that you are, utilizing the exact terms there, because they might be going to ask you question on based on that. So scalability, cost of ownership, high availability, measured service, and definitely the green environment as well. Now let's move to the PaaS, platform as a service. So we know that in the platform as a service, what we are doing here, the capability which is offered to the consumer is to deploy onto the cloud infrastructure consumer created application using programming languages, libraries, services, and tools which is supported by the provider. Remember, customer does not manage or control any of the underlying cloud infrastructure, include network, server, OS, or storage, but they have control over the deployed application and the possible configuration setting. Like same thing, I must go through this application service. I'm having an application service here, and in this application service, which is web app, in this particular application service, I'm having an option that I can actually do the browsing from here. So I can simply click on overview section, and here I'm having option of browse. Now this one is actually integrated with Facebook. So whenever I'm going to request, it is going to first redirect me to the Facebook, and then only it will authenticate. But because I'm already authenticated user in the Facebook here, so right now it is not. So let me just copy the link, and I'm going to open the private window. And if I'm going to paste and go, see, it is redirecting me to the Facebook first. So here I had done the federated authentication, where the OAuth is actually going to check the authorization level, and based on that only I can be authenticated. And first I need to authenticate myself, and then only it is going to redirect me to the given application there. So all of the necessary configuration settings is already supported. Like configuration section, if I go there, I can do the necessary configuration as per my requirement there. Okay, like let me see, it is actually loading there. All of the different connection string, options, value, I can audit. I can do the authentication as per the requirement. So right now, see, the authentication I'm doing it through the Facebook. If I wanted to do through the Azure AD, that one I can do there. Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Twitter. Application Insight is actually for monitoring, which is actually the performance monitoring there, so which is already enabled. So Application Insight component is collectively measuring all the capabilities, and based on that it is offering me the overall profile of this application, which is going to help me to make it more better. I can integrate the managed identity, I can do the backup, I can integrate the custom domain, TLS SSL setting, I can change network setting, I can change there. But remember, in the network setting we cannot do so many changes there. It is just the VNet integration I can do, but if you're looking for the lower level changes, that one is not possible. Otherwise, we have a scale up, a scale out, web jobs for doing executing some scripts there, MySQL integration with this application, quota defining. So I must say there, all the different tool through which you can manage a certain application has been given here, and this is definitely going to provide you the environment like you are working on a in your IaaS environment there. Now, this capability more and more is going to help you to control the overall features, and they are keep enhancing this particular capability as per the requirement. Remember, we are following the continuous integration and continuous development feature in all of the application nowadays. So So the customer is actually going to drive the most of the requirement there. So if customer want, they can put the requirement, and if definitely if multiple volumes of the request is coming it out, Microsoft is not hesitating to integrate this particular feature to them there, which is actually going to make it more smoother experience there. So the key feature I must say there, here also we are getting the auto scaling capability, and we had already seen there that in the same application, if I'm trying to get the auto scaling capability, we have this particular scale out option there. So here I can just configure the auto scaling capability. We have auto scale, and we can define a condition, and automatically it is going to increase the resource as per the requirement. So to run your application, definitely you require the number of processor and the number of RAM. How much RAM or processor you require is totally depends on the plan we are utilizing. So right now I'm utilizing this standard plan actually, and in the standard plan, see the number of configuration I'm getting here. I'm having a custom domain option, so I can integrate my custom domain with this application. I'm having auto scaling capability, which can increase up to 10 instance. The staging slot for the development and testing is up to 5. Daily backup and traffic manager for the load balancing. And these are the hardwares like Azure Compute Unit, memory, and storage. But suppose I wanted to increase this one, I can go to the P1 V2, P2 V2, P3 V2. These are the premium plans there. And if I'm
Hey, Rajiv, sorry to interrupt. One question here for the scaling.
Mhm.
If an application is scaling up to 20 instances,
Mhm.
what does it actually means? Is it operates like a cluster, or it operates, it combines the resources of 20 instances and applies to that application? How it is in practical
Okay.
terms?
See, when you are running any application onto the cloud, so this application definitely is going to run on some in backend some virtual machine, or might be on some container there, correct? So when I'm going to do the auto scaling, it
Mm-hmm.
will fire up the instances for me there.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is written that I can go up to 10 instances, it means it can fire up to maximum of 10 instances for you, which is having the identical Azure Compute Unit, which we are having onto the first resource there. Are you getting the point?
But
See, remember here we are
oh,
actually defining the scale out.
yeah, so I think the question is, if I may give a try at the question. So when there's multiple instances that are being created here, Srini, it's up to your application to then know how to use it. Say that we were to go for if we had our Elasticsearch. Say that we had an Elasticsearch engine that if we had more Elasticsearch capabilities needed, that automatically it would spin out another one, and then the Elasticsearch would be spread over 2 machines. Then we would be able to scale out, but that's only if the application knows how to deal with this, right? If the application doesn't know how to use multiple machines, then scaling out doesn't work. So
Correct.
you need to have an application that is aware, that knows how to scale.
Yeah, you cannot use that model itself for our application because our application is not capable of handling this model.
Right.
What is an example of an application which scales like that?
Most cloud applications do. I mean, Facebook is an example. I mean, Gmail is an example. Like if Gmail runs on 1 machine and they need more Gmail, it runs on 2 machines, and then on 5, and then on 100, and it just, you don't know which machine you hit when you hit your Gmail, and if many more people go onto Gmail, many more Gmail servers will be created to scale out.
A lot of gaming servers are also like that. When there are 500 players at a time, maybe they need 10 servers, but if it jumps to 1,000, they need 20.
No, for example, see, in case of auto scaling, if you, for example, if you take off, so then you need to have a redirection in front of the application configuration it's basically kind of load balancing, right? You're mimicking the load balancer mechanism here based on the number of requests you're taking in. For example, you're operating a web server and a web application. In that case, so you need to upfront
Okay,
code
see,
it such a way that it has to manage that load balance and redirect that requests to the scaled instances.
Yeah, let me ask that question, Rajiv, in a clear way. I have an application, software application, which can run on a specific server. So when you say that I'm going to fire up multiple VMs automatically using this model, how that application will automatically adapt to the next server, the new server or the new VM when you fire up?
Okay, so see what I had described till now there, if the uses, okay, on that particular system is greater than 65%, like suppose I had already consumed the 75% of my processor, correct? Now, based on that only, it is going to fire up a new Azure compute unit for me there, or I can say that it is going to fire up a new VM for me there, right? And then the rest of the load is actually going to transfer to the next VM, whatever it is fired up, right? So this is how exactly it is going to now load balance. So
Yeah, but
now,
the question is indeed, what is the mechanism to transfer that load? That's the question.
okay, so see, by default, the mechanism always going to be the round robin. This is the default mechanism we are always utilizing, which is actually the
So
default
the
capability we
primary
have.
application, which I installed on the first instance of the Windows box, will it automatically, because the second VM is going to have a separate OS, or it is going to be just utilizing that VM's hardware only?
Okay, so it is actually going to mimic all the configuration which we have onto the first VM there. As I told that even in the scale set also you had seen there that we are going to define a custom image there, and that custom image is going to utilized every time you are going to fire up the VM. Okay. Now in case of application, whatever the first configuration we are going to provide, it is going to mimic the exact configuration for the another application which you are going to fire up there. So your base is actually going to define the overall configurations there.
And basically, one thing, like if we should look at the presentation of Event Tracker. Sorry, this is about us ourselves now. So for a second, Rajiv,
Yeah, sure.
we should look at the presentation of Event Tracker X, where we're still not going to be able to do what is described here, but at least we will start using a message queuing service so that once these servers start scaling out, then the message queuing service basically distributes the load between those different servers. Once we have that in our Event Tracker X, then the next phase will be whereby we will be able to move it to the cloud and have the cloud add instances as needed. Think 5 years from now, Event Tracker, we should be able to say if we needed more collection points, if we needed more collection points, they automatically add a new collection point, and the load that comes into the collection points gets automatically distributed between those machines, and then it gets sent to a bunch of other machines that are doing the indexing, and then to another bunch of machines that are doing the archiving. And each of them adds or removes load as they need to.
Yeah, I understood all this. So I'm looking for an example right now in the practical world.
I understood the issue.
Yeah, Srini, many of the CRM applications like Salesforce and SAP, PeopleSoft, they all work like that with
They
the
designed that way.
application scales. You can either have the application scale or it could be the backend database that
No,
scales.
I got that. If you take a Salesforce, they're using AWS in the background. They're providing the SaaS services in the front end. They're doing all this in the background. Fine. Yeah, the same thing they're using. Is there a list of applications which are compatible to this behavior? See, right now, if you take an example of Event Tracker, you need to rewrite the whole application to do this, right? So maybe Azure or AWS is providing how to architect your code, how to do all this. You write your own. So it's basically
No, that's what those containers are for, right? The container mechanism is meant to make port your code into a container. Once you containerize your application, then it can allow scaling on the cloud. But
That's
yeah,
that
that's
container
the
apps are
whole.
different. You see, if you take an example, like there are several applications like Event Tracker in the market. The fundamental question is, are they forced to re-architect their application for the cloud in the near future, otherwise go obsolete? That's the
Okay,
question.
see, one more thing here. Each of the application what you're utilizing in your traditional environment has not made in that way so they can do the auto scaling capability there, right?
Mm.
Every application whichever we are actually forcing onto the cloud there, definitely they must have that capability, built in after that one. By
Mm.
default, no any application is actually made up with the auto scaling capability. That capability you have to configure in the code there, so they can adjust to the behavior of the cloud there. Like they are keeping very much changing as per the requirement and everything there. So if you're looking for some examples there, definitely there are so many examples are there in the market which is right now present. But suppose you are
Is
looking for,
yeah, got it. Everything is simple. Yeah, got it. Now, is this the
yeah,
same scaling model adopted by all the cloud providers like
yes,
AWS or Google?
correct. That is the same scaling capability we have there. Yeah, definitely they are having some little bit commensurate changes there, but almost concept with all of the provider is same. Okay, because at the same time, see, as I told you previously as well, that we are also looking for the portability concept there and interoperability concept. So suppose I invested a good money there for the Azure for developing such kind of auto scale capable application, and then if I'm trying to move it onto the AWS and it is not compatible there, my investment is going to be reinvented there as well, right? So it's not going to fruitful in my case. So yes, all of them are actually providing the almost same concept for the scaling capability there.
Yeah, so a lot of development work. Got it.
Yes,
Yeah, correct.
yes.
Yeah, and
This
that's when we talk to our IT department. I mean, Justin, for instance, he's like, "Why don't we do it this way?" The the argument that comes from Anand and whatever and from Jagat is that what this also implies is that your application is quite modularized and that we have different app servers or different containers for different parts of the application, which means that typically for something as complex as what Event Tracker is, you would have several containers or several servers that work together to form the full solution. And what Jagat then says is, yeah, but a customer who wants to install it on-prem will never want to install all these different services or containers or servers. And we still need to have this monolithic application. So there is a tension in our company between that need to deliver a monolithic application for an individual customer and others who say we need to be scalable like the cloud is scalable, and we're trying to find that development road and going forward that slowly makes our application capable of doing it, but not really being a cloud application yet.
Yeah, the thing is, it can never be the same monolithic application which will run both on-prem and in cloud and be efficient. It has to be at some point two separate code bases. You have to have separate application.
Maybe, or you can start running internally inside the system. You can start doing some of that
Yeah.
scaling out. And that's what Anant is saying is inside the monolithic application, we will start using this scaling out inside of it.
Yep.
So they're kind of making us, I think the approach that they're taking is
Baby
actually,
steps in.
yeah, it actually makes sense, I think.
I think we can have that internally. Let's not hijack the training.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Although it's a healthy discussion there, it should have to go on there.
Exactly.
Okay. So apart from the auto scaling capability in the platform as a service, we are also looking for multiple hosting environments. So definitely, it totally depends like how much flexibility we are getting in terms of hosting environment there, because that one is going to define me how easily I can actually lift my application there and I can run it onto the provider side. So with the cloud provider, when is the responsible for the actual platform, customer has a wide choice of operating system and environment there. So they will be selecting their required platform, and then they are going to just migrate it there, definitely for the testing and might be for their production environment application as well. So this is the another possibility we have onto the platform as a service. Another thing, we will be also having a proper upgrade option there. So it's very much easily we can actually upgrade. So easy upgrades, I can say there. And again, operating system and platform which is being offered by the provider, upgrade and changes are more simple and efficient than in traditional data center model, where system administrator need to perform actual upgrade on physical server there, which also means downtime and loss of productivity during the upgrades are actually going to be very much minimum there, and definitely that are going to done by the provider itself there. It's pretty much cost effective solution there, because here we are going to pay for the platform what we are utilizing it there. So if I'm comparing with the infrastructure as a service, it's a cost effective solution, and the accessibility is also very much easy there. So ease of access, I can also say there. So these are some of the contribution and the features we have. Along with, I can also keep it at the licensing feature, because even for the licensing also we don't have to pay specifically for the platform on which it is actually going to build on there. Now coming to the software as a service quickly. So for the software as a service, I must say there that support cost over and all has reduced. Okay, because everything is normally managed by the provider only, so overall support cost is reduced, and licensing and other things are actually going to taken care by them only there. So overall cost is reduced, even the support and licensing is actually going to taken care by the provider. Remember, this time in case of software as a service, we are paying as per the number of users there. So definitely licensing we don't need to worry about there. Plus administration is pretty much easier here, because normally they are going to offer you the console, and that console you must need to be familiar with there. So administration is easy, I must say there. Yeah. And apart from that, a standard approach for each of the data and the application. So I must say that if I'm using a Office 365 edition there, and in the Office 365 edition, I will be getting the Office 2019 version there. So definitely the same version is actually available for each of the customer. It's not like I'm using different and you're using different one there. So that is the different options we have there. Now we have some more benefits even on the from the deployment side as well there. But I think now it's a good time to stop or pause the session for us today here. Now we have a small mode, a small section still on the domain of first, but it is not that much of there. But yes, from this particular section, you have to keep it out what we had discussed till now there. There are some enterprise architectural discussion we have to do there. And there are some standard we have to discuss there. But although some of the standard we had already discussed, specifically the CSS star, now we are aware about SOC auditings we are aware about. Apart from that, even the PCI DSS, and specifically in the PCI DSS, make sure that PCI DSS is having 4 levels: PCI DSS level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. It is the level which will define that how intense the auditing is going to be against you there. And remember, this level 1 is actually going to offer you a transaction which is more than 6 million, right? And your AWS or Azure infrastructure is always compliant with this particular PCI DSS level 1 only there. If you are at level 4, it means your number of transactions per year is less than 20,000, and definitely based on that, the auditing is also not going to be that much of intense there, because you're not targeting.
Question from these in the exam?
Yes, this can come there. That is the reason I'm actually also discussing.
Okay,
so this level, number of transaction you need to remember is there, because this can be asked here based on a certain scenario. They can ask you the question there. So yes, this is the reason you must need to remember even the difference between SOC 1, SOC 2, and SOC 3. What exactly the difference between them is there, specifically the difference between type 1 and type 2 audit. And we have some more component, but because we have some redundant topics available there in domain number 5, so I will be skipping some of the topic from the domain number 5, which from the domain number 1, which is not relevant right now to discuss, because when we are discussing about the basic concepts of the cloud and the features and then moving towards the advanced part, I'm not going to integrate the technical concepts right now here. So we have the cloud operations, and in the operations, we are having a discussion on the NIST standards. We have a discussion on the ISO standards there, which should have to be, your organization should have to be compliant with. And we are also having a discussion on some management concept like the change management, then after the, ITIL, IETSM. So these discussions we have there info domain number 5. So to preserve the time, I will be making sure that I'm not discussing the same topic again there. So in the domain number 5, I will be coming back again there. The topic, if any, I will be going to left it here. I hope this is clear to you all till now.
Yeah.
We are about to, I can say, about to end the domain number first. So if you feel that there is any question you have, you can let me know there.
Yeah, I have one small question. So what are the disadvantages of going with pay-as-you-go? Do you think of any?
Okay, so pay-as-you-go disadvantage.
Yeah.
See, till now, this is actually a really interesting question, because till now this question I didn't got from any of my students there.
Okay.
Because you're asking for a disadvantage for pay-as-you-go. Now, this is
I,
actually really a good discussion there. What could be the disadvantage there?
It's
I
more
know,
expensive.
I know for sure it's much more expensive over a year's time. A lot more
Yeah.
expensive than.
Any type of subscription model, I think, is always a lot more expensive than paying upfront for several years.
Okay, yeah, that one, yes, good, yes, it's a good point there. Actually, we can discuss on that with a simple example on the AWS. In AWS, when you are creating any machine, there is an option we have that we can reserve the instances for the 1 year or might be for the 3 year. So whenever you're reserving the instances, they're giving you option that you can pay at all upfront costs there, and definitely with that you can save up to 75% there. And you are also having option of partial upfront or might be no upfront. So if you are comparing this pay as you go with this particular reserve instances, definitely you will be getting more benefit there, because you are paying at all of the cost at the same time rather than going for this pay as you go model. But yes, there is one small glitch we have here, that there might be a possibility that the instances you are reserving for the 3 year might not going to be, you're not utilizing for the 3 year there. In that case, if you're paying all of the upfront cost there, your strategy should have to be very much precise and good there. Otherwise, might be you're going to waste your money as well there, right?
King, in the pay-as-you-go, you better design your cloud infrastructure with a chartered accountant first.
With what?
A CPA. Use a CPA to design your cloud so that he can save some money for you. Otherwise, you're going
Yeah,
to
Yeah,
lose some money.
I just want to know the disadvantages.
yeah.
That's
The
what. If you
Yeah.
use a technical person, you're going to lose money. You need to have a finance guy up front.
that's a fair point. I mean, I have to say that when you do the financial calculations on pay as you go, it's incredibly expensive. I think that pay as you go, my answer would be is that you use that when you have very variable load, right? So companies will try to do prepay fixed pricing for expected load, and then do pay as you go for elastic, scaling out. If you have a website and it's almost Christmas and that website becomes really busy, or whatever it is, the reason, right? That's when you do pay as you go, because you don't know how busy it's going to get and you want to be able to meet demand. But your domain controllers that are going to be used every day, you should never do pay as you go. You should do, prepaid.
Yeah. Let Rajiv sleep. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think we are good here. So we have some few more small topics to be covered from the domain number first. So definitely we'll cover tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be the last day for the chapter number first here. I must say the domain number first here. And after that, we will move into the data security part there, which is, the highest number of questions you will be getting in the examination. And definitely for you also, the data security is going to be the utmost priority there, because definitely there we are going to discuss about the different control options like the encryption, TLP solution, or the SIM solution, other things there. So yep, that's it. Okay, guys. So thank you for the day. Let's
Thank
meet
you.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Raj.
Raju.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye.